Well, now, since the last general election, MPs have, of course, come under fire for being overpaid, unrepresentative, and in some cases even corrupt, and the list goes on. The term Westminster elite is considered quite an insult and a way of accusing our politicians of being out of touch. So how might the next generation of MPs try to change that? Well, starting this week on Monaghan, I'll be interviewing parliamentary candidates from the main political parties and finding out how they plan to change politics. This week I'm joined by three Labour candidates: Stephen Kinnock, who's standing in Aberavon in Wales, currently held by Labour; Sen, who's standing in Brighton Pavilion, the seat currently held by the Green Party's only MP, Caroline Lucas, who just, of course, had the Greens leader on; and Suzy Stride, who's standing in Harlow, currently held by the Conservatives. Very good morning to you all, and I suppose I have to start with you, Stephen, because, of course, your father led the party. You would actually, if you get in, be joining a parliament that contains both your parents, wouldn't you? They're both in the Lords. Mm-hmm. But, how much has the party changed since your father led it?
I think it's changed a huge amount. I think we're increasingly bringing a diverse range of candidates into the party. I think we're bringing people in who are connected, if you like, with the outside world, outside the Westminster
yes,
bubble.
You preempted what I was going to ask you about. So how are you connected? Aren't you a bit, you're a political elite, your wife's the Prime Minister of Denmark. Your father used to lead the party.
Well, I think if you look at my own career, I've lived and worked outside the UK for a lot of my career. I've worked a lot with business. I think my career, my CV is one which is very much outside the Westminster bubble.
I feel like when I said in the introduction I'm interviewing you all, I feel like this is what you've all been through to become the prospective candidates for the seats. I'm not doing that, but the charge is, Sen, that you're not, I suppose, ordinary enough. The party, the Labour Party, we've seen that with Emily Thornberry's tweeting all the row about that you're not connected, you don't understand how people really live their lives.
I can see why people have that to say and why they see that politicians are of that sort of ilk. But I think what's very important that our party is doing is actually changing that in a very serious way. Look, I'm a single mum, I'm an immigrant. I've worked 35 years. I don't come from a political career. It's my first time ever standing for Parliament, and I think people want to see people like us representing them who understand what challenges they have every day, what it's like to bring up kids, what it's like to struggle for money and to think about the next day as not being assured. It's all not good enough to say that people who are without money are scroungers and are bad people. Look, if I lost my job tomorrow, I'd be in a bit of trouble and I'd need some support. I understand what that's like, and to have a government that's more in touch with those sorts of issues is really important, and that's what we're offering.
But you've all got a bit of a problem, haven't you, Suzy? I mean, your leader, you've got to stick by him, of course, but isn't he part of the problem for you as well? People saying he's out of touch, he doesn't understand us.
No, I don't think so. I'm standing in Harlow, and the fact of the matter is, when I knock on doors in Harlow, what do people care about?
What do they say to you? Ed Miliband's great.
No, people care about the fact that
No, they don't say he's great.
No, I'm saying when you knock on doors in Harlow, people say we want to see jobs for our sons and daughters. We want to see homes being built. And which leader is going to do that? Ed Miliband. Ed Miliband's the one that's going to bring in the jobs guarantee. He's standing up to bankers. He's standing up to energy companies. These are the things that people care about. However, coming back to your other point, we do have a problem. Westminster is not representative enough. We do not have enough working class people.
And your background?
My background is that I've worked in education for 10 years. I was born in the East End of London. My mum used to stack shelves in Asda. I went to a state school. Yes, I went to Cambridge. I was the only one in my year that got there. So I would say, I'm a fairly normal person. The big thing for me is we need people that have lived and breathed normality, and their politics and their conviction doesn't come from reading a book, but it comes from being out there in the normal world. And you are right, Westminster is not enough like that. But the Labour Party, I would say, is actually changing that. We're, you can see people around this table. Yeah. We're selecting different types of people from different backgrounds. The Tories and the Lib Dems are, miles behind us.
Well, we've got to address, this project that you're describing, we've got to address the elephant, I suppose, the white van in the room, haven't we, Stephen Kinnock? Emily Thornberry's tweet, that hasn't helped this whole proposition you're putting forward about how you're all different and you understand people, has it?
Well, look, Emily made a mistake, and I think Ed has shown very decisive leadership on that. The key point is that Ed has got a plan for the country. He is looking to undo the damage that the Tory government has caused. He's looking to address issues of vested interests such as the energy companies, the banks, and he wants to move forward with a very constructive plan for the country. So We are the party that has
but
that
why,
plan in
I mean, the
place.
question I'm getting at, I want to ask you, Pona, about that tweet again, but the question I'm getting at is, you will come into, if you win your seat, we have to say that, but you will come into a party that you want to change. So Ed Miliband can't be doing everything right at the moment, because there is the perception, and it goes for all the parties, but there is the perception, particularly after that tweet, that Labour is partially not in touch with its electors.
My view is that we need to get out into the
change.
country more. One of the things I think that worked incredibly well in the Scottish referendum campaign was Jim Murphy's 100-town tour, where he went around around Scotland, standing on iron brew boxes and making his points. I'd like to see more of that. I think that we do need our leadership out there in the country, talking to people, going through the media. Past the media and straight to connections with us.
So what do you think?
I think it would be a mistake
Thornberry.
to present any leader or any politician as perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. Emily has said she made a mistake, and we need to move on from
Do you think she did make a mistake?
She said she's made a mistake.
Do you think she did?
I think it was an unhelpful tweet, and I think the storm has now passed. And I think it's important we recognise that Suzy was talking about what people say to her on the doorstep. I was out yesterday. We must have talked, I don't know, at least 60, 70 people. Then I had more people come for tea with me yesterday afternoon. Now, Emily Thornberry is not the issue they're raising. They're saying they're on low wages, they can't afford bus fares to go into town, their kids can't get jobs, they can't afford housing. And that's the offer we're making to them. That resonates. And really, focusing on Emily Thornberry is not the issue that people on the doorstep want to talk about.
You're right. They might not have heard of Emily Thornberry. I mean, she's not exactly, or wasn't exactly high profile within the Labour Party before this. Profile's going up. But they are saying, you politicians, whatever party you come from, you sneer at people like us.
I think the fact of the matter is probably some politicians are like that, and we do, as I've already said, we need to change up Westminster. We need more diversity. But the fact of the matter is the Labour Party is doing that. Hence the fact that we've got one of our parliamentary candidates is a mum who used to work in a supermarket. We've got people like me that work in education. And that's what we need. We need people that were nurses, lorry drivers, teachers, people that have worked outside of Westminster. But as I say, I think the Labour Party is doing that. But also the other thing is, as parliamentary candidates, we need to be getting out there in the next 6 months. And I'm sure, we've all been doing this. But I've done pizza and politics nights in Harlow, and that's been about making politics a little bit more relevant.
Who buys the pizza?
A bit more fun. We buy the pizza, but people come along and we make politics engaging, and this is what we've got to do.
I mean, there is, we've got to talk about the UKIP issue, haven't we? There was Labour in Rochester and Strood, a seat that, if you were a serious opposition, some people saying you should have gone and won it. Distant third. How do you address it? The point is that if there were by-elections in the seats you're fighting right now, given the state of play with UKIP, they might win them. You might not even become MPs. How do you address the immigration issue that UKIP raised?
I mean, the first point is to talk about it, and this is not an issue that can any longer be brushed under the carpet. And I think what we've seen from Yvette Cooper and Rachel Reeves in the last few days is a very clear set of policies which are saying we know that immigration is an issue. It needs to be managed.
Going to say you're going to be able to limit migration from within the EU?
No, but I think what we are putting in place is policies around ensuring that the so-called benefits tourism, which in my opinion gets blown out of proportion, but nevertheless is an issue that needs to be addressed. We're addressing it. We're addressing the issues around border guards. We're addressing a whole range of other issues around the way in which child benefit could or may or may not be drawn down by people from other EU countries.
Right,
so those are issues where Labour is saying we're listening to people, we have got a sensible set of policies in place. These things are always about trade-offs.
And the Conservatives, we understand, about to say more or less the same thing. I mean, Panda, what do you think about it all? Isn't it time for a party, a senior party, not to be being dragged onto UKIP's territory and say, well, look, immigration's been good for this country?
Well, it has been good for this country, and we have
say it out loud.
And if you listen to Ed, that is also what he said, but that's not what's getting reported so much. Now, you're speaking to me as an immigrant.
Well, Stephen Kinnock's speaking there, Rachel Reeves, talking about the great things you're doing to stop immigration, to stop people coming to this country that have something to contribute.
Now, look, for me in Brighton Pavilion, immigration's not an issue that's raised. UKIP is not a strong party. They came a fourth in the European election. For us, the anti-immigration, the stranger danger sort of line is not something that works. And if we're talking about representation, which is where you started us off, UKIP's candidates across our region are all middle-class, middle-aged white men. Now, that is not a party that reflects the people it's seeking to serve. It's also not a party that's engaging with people's everyday issues. It's picking up on the sense of discontent and protest. It's a protest party. When you ask people what UKIP policies and changes they like, they have very little to offer you because they don't know, but they're upset with others, and that's why our task is to re-engage with them.
I heard you agreeing with that. If they're a protest party, it's a bit of a gamble to take then. Protest parties usually fade when the time comes for the big decisions at the general election. Do you think that's the way Labour should play it?
You know, for me, I look at Nigel Farage. He's a banker, he's wealthy, he is completely, for me, disconnected. I mean, I work with young people.
But perceived to be not of the Westminster elite.
Yeah, because he stands in a pub with a beer, so what? You know, does he care about the fact that he's happy to privatise the NHS, he's happy to bring a flat rate of tax and tax nurses and bankers the same amount, he's happy to protect bankers' bonuses. People in Harlow have no time.
But he wants to leave the EU to get immigration down. How does
leave
Labour
the EU
that?
and let's lose out on loads of jobs? Yeah, that's going to be great for Harlow. That's going to be great for this country. Nigel Farage, my thing with Nigel Farage is when people hear the policies that his party are about, they have no time for UKIP. But sadly, that's where we need to get out and make sure that people do know what UKIP are really about.
Listen, thank you all very much indeed. I would say good luck to you all, but I'm not allowed to do that. Who knows which of you I'll see sitting around this table in 7 months' time as MPs. Very good to see you all. Berners and Suzy Stride, Stephen Kinnock, very good to see you.
Thank you.
Now, coming up.